Hi, I'm Sian, one of the news editors at Manx Radio. Last week we heard the Isle of Man Food and Drink Festival for this year has been cancelled. And while some producers have concerns about the loss of the event, the Environment, Food and Agriculture Minister Clare Barber has been defending the decision. I asked her why the event has been scrapped.
So we'd had quite a lot of feedback over the last couple of years, and of course we have had some significant challenges, I think it's fair to say, the last couple of years as well, which has highlighted the level of risk of putting all of our proverbial eggs in one basket, I suppose. Because 2 years ago we had the passing of the Queen, where we almost pulled the event right at the last minute, and then last year the weather was particularly inclement, meaning we had only a third of the standard visitors. And we'd had feedback from stall holders around some of the challenges they faced, especially with some of that short notice where we considered cancelling. We'd also had feedback from people going to the event around accessibility, around certainly the mud last year and some of the challenges we had with that, and also the price, because we had to put the price up, and that would have been the position we'd have been in again this year. So actually we took some time to reflect. We spoke to some of the producers, we spoke to DFE, and just sort of in a more general term about the things that actually they need within the food and drink space. And what we've realised actually, I think, is there's a real opportunity to talk to all the producers, because we acknowledge that's something we haven't done. That's something we've asked in the communication we put out, to really understand actually where they all are in their different processes. Because I think for some people, the sort of food and drink festival model is the right position for them in the place of their business, in the time frame of their business where they're at. And for other people, I don't think that's necessarily what they need. But because we only have one big event, everyone was having to fit into one box. So we want to do this year as a bit of a change, I suppose, to really increase our presence at the two agricultural shows. That's the first piece of the jigsaw. But also to look at a buyer's event, also to look at how we can really channel our tourist visitors to our various businesses, because we used to have a brilliant booklet actually, and I know booklets maybe are a bit outdated. We want to make sure it's replicated on the website, but really telling the story of where you can go and get products, who's selling what's available. So I think there's a whole suite of things, and in my view there will be some form of festival in the future. I just think potentially we may look at different venues, maybe different time of year, different regional locations as well. So loads of things being considered. It's certainly not a case of us just saying we're not going to do anything.
Now, the reaction that we've seen from producers posting on social media and speaking to us is that this is essentially going to be quite a big loss for them. Is that something you agree with?
So we reflected on that, and that's why we wanted to make sure that there were alternative things available. And we also want to really focus, I suppose, on what the intention of the Food and Drink Festival is. So although it's a celebration, no question, of all of the brilliant products we have here, it also is to drive people to change in their habits. And I think actually being able to do things year round will really help us to do that in a greater way. So I absolutely take on board, and we really want those producers to get in touch with us, and we have reached out to a number of the ones who've commented around social media. But I really want to bring that information in to understand how we can do things better, because it's fair to say that it wasn't a case that last year everyone said everything was perfect by any stretch.
And what feedback have you had from producers so far?
I've had quite a mixed bag, actually. So we've had some people who felt initially, actually, goodness, this is going to be a really big hit. But actually, when we've had the opportunity to talk to them, they're maybe less concerned. For some people, we recognise it will be a bigger challenge. And for other people, actually, they're really excited and think that the things we're proposing will work far better for their business. I think which shows the diversity, actually, of what different businesses need, and the fact that one size just really doesn't fit all.
In terms of the increased focus on the agricultural shows, obviously they have other events going on as well. They're not just about the food produce. Do food producers see the same kind of yield from those events that they would at the festival?
So I think it can vary, but certainly we have brilliant throughput through the DEFA tents at the agricultural shows, and we're going to increase the space within them, the number of different concessions that can have pitches. So we're really keen for any food and drink producers to come and talk to us who would like to exhibit at those events. And I think it's fair to say that, before I got in this job, I always turned up to all of these various events actually with a couple of empty big shopping bags so that I could fill them up with all the various products and try different things and meet producers. So I think those functions of what it provides actually are similar in both places. I acknowledge there are some elements that won't be at the agricultural shows, such as the demonstration kitchen, for example. That's something that wouldn't be there. But I do think that there's an opportunity to replicate a lot of the opportunity to speak to the people who are your potential customers and your current customers, actually, and to showcase the products. And we know that there really is a huge breadth of product to showcase on the island.
Now, the festival website itself says in 2022, the festival brought in an estimated domestic economic impact of £320,000. The press release from 2021 had that as £365,000. Can the extra focus on the agricultural shows make up that deficit?
So we would certainly hope so. And of course, I'd say it's not just the agricultural shows, because we also want to look at that, going out, meet the buyer opportunity. And for some people who are looking to go into different markets, that's a real opportunity. And we know that we've got retail businesses who want to buy more local product and they want to find out how they can do that. We're also doing an industry meetup event. We think that's really important. And as I say, actually, the booklet, I think, will be a really useful thing. That was something we've had feedback from, that when people get off the boat, they can find information about the trains and they can get information about the buses and all the Manx National Heritage sites and various other activities. What's missing is something that gives you a really comprehensive guide to what should you try when you're on the Isle of Man? What's the food and drink things that are our specialities? Which are our businesses? Who can you go to? Which restaurants are providing which things? And also which shops can you go to if you want to take some tasty goodies back home with you. So that's another piece of the jigsaw. But I say those are just some of the things, and we're also in conversation with other people about some of the regional opportunities for smaller food and drink markets. We also know we've got the ongoing support we provide to the foodies market and also the farmers market. And what I really want to get to actually is a calendar of year-round events where almost, every other weekend at the minimum, there's somewhere that you can go confidently on the island to go and see producers. And I think that's absolutely the position we'd like to get to. And so I'm certainly not ruling out that there might well be something different we do next year. I just think for this year, it just wasn't something we felt was possible to proceed with.
Now, we know that it's often a busy time of year for the food producers. They have the Southern Show, the Royal Show, and then the Food Festival, all in about a 6-week or so period. For some producers, it takes months to prepare for that. Do you think the producers could have been given more notice?
I certainly acknowledge, in an ideal world, we would have given more notice. And I think there was a number of different things that needed to come together from our part to be sure that this was a decision we were taking. But I hope that, I think it's 85 days was the amount we gave. And we did acknowledge that, that hopefully would allow enough time, but also enough time for people to move to some of those other events that we were highlighting, and some of those events that we haven't yet been able to talk about that we hope will be coming onto the calendar and we'll be advertising soon.
Now, you've touched on that there will be a new event for the producers to showcase their produce to buyers on and off island. What more can you tell us about that?
So that's very much a work in progress, but very much in partnership with DFE, and I think that's another thing I think is a really good news story. DEFA and DFE really want to work much closer on how we promote food and drink, both on island and off island, and I think it's fair to say that that's been helped, I suppose, by the work we've been doing through Tesco's, because we've come together and actually having then talked to producers, we can see that there's far more that we can do when we're working together. We know that they ran the Manx menu campaign. I was talking to someone the other day who said, I think it was in one of the Channel Islands, they're doing a 2-week long sort of restaurant promotion scheme where they all run different offers and everyone tries to race round to use all the offers over a 2-week period to go and see what the restaurants are offering. So I think there's different ideas as well that we can pull from elsewhere. And if people want to come and talk to us, that's absolutely something we're open about. I think we put the email address food@gov.im. Any producers who want to get in touch with either feedback, things that they think would work, certainly for their business, we'd really be interested in hearing.
For the consumer, though, the food festival, it's that chance to go and try things you've maybe not come across before. Do you think having a sort of a more industry event like this perhaps takes away from that access to the consumer?
So I think it's a different thing, I suppose. It's another piece of the jigsaw. But for the consumer to come and to try things, certainly I think the presence at the agricultural shows does offer that, and will offer that for a greater number of products. But also we know that we've also got the various markets, as I say, foodies market, farmers market. We know that some of the regional commissioners are really keen to do more in their local area as well. So I think there's just so many groups who are invested actually in our local food and drink in terms of understanding the produce and knowing what we can change to, where we can access it. So we had feedback, as I said, from people who felt that actually the food and drink tickets were getting too expensive. The number of things that potentially they could try were reducing. So we'd had some quite interesting feedback in advance. And, I accept there are people who are absolutely loyal to the Food and Drink Festival, and I hope that once they start to see the sort of things we want to be putting out, that actually they'll see there's many opportunities for them to come and support those food and drink providers. And as I say, I'm certainly not ruling out next year having something that fills this space, maybe in a slightly different way, maybe in a less weather-dependent venue, maybe a slightly different time of year. I don't know. These are all things we're working through.
Now, in terms of this Meet the Buyers event, talking particularly with off-island buyers, you gave evidence recently to a Tynwald committee where you talked about the cost of freight potentially being a barrier to some producers. This event, it sounds like it will put people in touch with buyers, but how do you overcome that cost barrier?
So we know that that's something we've committed as government to explore anyway, and I think it's just really important that we're listening, we're taking that on. And the other thing that I think it's worth reflecting is there's different people who are exporting. So there's people who are exporting a product that's exactly as it came out of the ground, and there's people who've already been able to add the significant value to that by processing that product. And I think they're facing different challenges, and I think it's important to reflect actually on, I sort of say at the minute we've got a one-size-fits-all picture, but actually different people have different challenges. We're listening to all those different groups, and we're definitely hearing some of the challenges they face. But from my perspective, that's the thing we absolutely are committed to working with the steam packet in conversation with Treasury about. But also, we want to encourage export, and we know that we've got businesses on Ireland who are managing to export and do that profitably and successfully.
In 2021, when you were talking about the festival itself, you said it plays a significant role in growing the food and drink sector, which is a key goal in our Food Matters strategy. Is that not the case anymore?
So I think when I spoke then, we hadn't had 2 years where we'd really been at risk of losing this. And I suppose that's been something that really played on my mind. We spent a lot of time considering, could we go ahead when we had the sad passing of Her Majesty? And interestingly, we had some quite negative feedback actually for our decision to proceed. But the reality for us is because we're sinking all our costs into one event, if we choose to cancel it late notice, or, as last year, if the weather potentially had have led to us having to cancel, we did go ahead. But obviously, as we know, we had to then resolve the Villa Marina grounds, which had turned into something of a swamp, and that put people off as well attending. Because we're putting everything into that, we really are at risk. If we lose that, then all the money that we're using to promote food and drink in 1 year is lost, and I can't recover that cost. So I think, absolutely, I stand by what I said at that point. I hadn't had the benefit of seeing those 2 years of significant risk. And actually, I think there's an opportunity to de-risk, but also, as I say, to try to move away from the one-size-fits-all model.
Thank you for making it to the end of the Manx Radio newscast. You are obviously someone with exquisite taste. May I politely suggest you might want to subscribe to this and a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider, so our best bits will magically appear on your smartphone. Thank you.